from the Salvation Army National Headquarters, this is the Fight for Good podcast.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fight for Good podcast. I'm your host, Lieutenant Colonel Tim Foley. We're in our studios here at National Headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia. It's a nice, drizzly, dreary day outside, but we're nice and toasty here in our temporary studios, which we've invaded our producer, Elizabeth. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning.
You. And also, across sitting from me is one of our most popular podcasters, Michele. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm super fantastic. And to my left is our wonderful Ancient of Days editorial director, Mr. Jeff McDonald. Sir, good to see you.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Now, I have to admit, I feel guilty because two stores that I went to, the kettle workers, they're out there very flamboyant. One of them had this lighted vest. I'm not quite sure in my days of yore when I was a Corps officer if I would allow that sort of thing, but it seemed to work. But I didn't have any money in my pocket. So it's like, what do you do, Mr. McDonald, if you don't have any money in your pocket and you have to go buy a kettle?
So simple, because you can just hold your phone to Apple Pay or Google Pay, and you're linked automatically to a subscription option.
I was hoping that you would remind our listeners about that option.
Isn't that great? Yeah, that's an innovation.
That really is, and there's been a lot of work getting that innovation to fruition. So we hope when you see a kettle out there, if you don't have any cash in your pocket, that you'll consider just putting your phone up to the sign, and it just kind of automatically pops up there that you can donate $10,000 out of your bank account, or a dollar.
Anything helps, that's for sure. But again,
helps.
Just the spirit of giving is what it's all about.
We would also love to hear from our Salvation Army folks on the field. What's happening in your neck of the woods at Christmas time? Send us your stories. Send us how we can encourage you. And I know, Elizabeth, you're always looking for fodder, things for the webpage, right?
I love things for the webpage, absolutely.
And people can kind of tweet at us, correct?
Absolutely tweet at us.
And what's our tweet?
Our Twitter handle?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, pop quiz time.
I think it's Warcry SA.
Okay.
I'm going to check, though. That's a great question. I don't know.
Why don't you research?
I'm going to do it right now. Hold on.
We'll talk about
SA Warcry.
SA Warcry.
Yeah.
But did I have it right? I think I may have had it right.
I think you had it.
Thank you. I had it right.
I think you did.
Thank you.
No, you switched it.
Yeah.
Don't give her. Praise her
I'm
for
not
being
the one.
wrong.
Devastating.
I'm not the one to ask for, if things are
whiz.
right, because you're always right.
Thank you.
Everybody's always right.
Absolutely.
In my eyes.
Until they tweet Warcry SA, it's not us.
That account doesn't exist.
But they could just put the @ symbol.
Yeah.
At Warcry SA.
No.
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 You're turning into me. No.
What is it?
SA Warcry.
Okay.
On Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
@ symbol SA Warcry. Mm-hmm. And they can tell us what's happening.
Whatever they want.
Yeah, and if they sent a picture, let's say, I would love to see like a van load of bell ringers.
Bell ringers.
And they're listening for the Fight for Good podcast.
Ooh.
And their Corps officer will take a picture. They could do one of those selfie things.
They could do a hashtag.
And they
Fight for Good podcast.
They could do that.
Yeah.
That would be good. And you got some good news for our podcast audience is growing.
Yes.
It's grown from 7
Yes. To hundreds.
to hundreds.
Well,
almost.
hundreds of listens. It's probably the same people listening multiple times.
Well, I wrote you all a memo. I said, download that puppy and listen to it at least 15 times, right?
Oh, I know. That's what I've been doing. Speed listening, double time.
Yeah.
That's
Get
it.
those listens in.
But we are growing.
Definitely.
That's great.
And we're on a
getting some
new
traction.
streaming platform, Stitcher.
What is that? I've never heard of that.
I had never heard of it either, but that's where a lot of our other Salvation Army podcasts reside. And it's just another platform to listen to podcasts. Free to download, free to listen.
And you added some new graphics. We had a little picture taken
Oh, yes.
of,
We love to see your beautiful faces.
The team.
And so
yeah.
does our audience.
team.
Yes, the team.
Podcast team.
Mm-hmm.
so we'll do
team.
more.
Yes.
We'll do more.
Photo shoots to come.
Do you think we should do
A selfie?
video of this?
Absolutely. A live stream.
Wouldn't that
Oh,
be
yeah,
cool?
we should.
Eventually, right?
Eventually, we're going to get there.
When we move into,
It's going to be so much fun. Are you kidding me?
that would be
This is
fun.
going to be awesome.
Could we have costumes?
Yes,
Props?
Oh, man.
definitely.
Oh boy!
Should I have some bozo?
Michelle's horrified.
Bozo
Michelle
knows
is like-
She's like, I will be sick.
But again, if you have a story of how the war cry is being used, we want to hear about it, right, Elizabeth? I mean, does it help to have pictures?
Absolutely. Photos are great.
Yeah.
Even a video. You want to send a video? That would be cool.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, if you haven't listened to a few of our past episodes, we encourage you to do so because we're not just sitting around talking about nothing. Some people may think that we are, but we are talking specifically about special sorts of things, the ministries that have been happening within the Salvation Army. We did a whole separate piece on the flood relief, right? And then we've had some very unique experiences with authors. I know I just love listening to your interview with Joanne Rogers. It was just like having my aunt in the room, and
Yeah, she was
just so gracious.
Not at all polished and just very forthright and honest, and like my grandmother was with me.
It was fun.
Tell me like it is.
It was fun. And I know, Michele, you had a great talk with Jeff Bethke. And the thing that, when I was listening to that interview, that he kept saying to you was, that's a good question.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah, because I like to send the questions ahead of time. So they do have a little bit of time to think about the question, but also I never want to ask a question that someone's uncomfortable with. And these ones Jeff went over them with me. We're kind of getting in there a bit because, he's in a very different financial standpoint than like other people. So taking a rest or a break for him is very different from someone else. So those were the kind of questions we wanted to ask. And so I never sent him the questions ahead of time because it was very, very quick. It was a fast turnaround. So yeah, he answered all of them though. You would have thought that I sent them ahead of time and he answered them like really well.
Because your interview with him was not necessarily what you had initially planned. You weren't going to talk about his book.
Well, I had already interviewed him for the February.
Okay.
And then like a week later, I found out he has a book out and it's the bestseller on Amazon. So I was like, is there a way we could do something online? And then it got turned into a podcast and it was like a whole thing. So, but it was good.
So this is the great thing about this digital component. It allows us to go a little deeper and become, I think, a little more transparent, authentic with these authors. Your interview with Amy Hollingsworth, I mean, she's just a jewel.
She is, and I recommend people going online to see the full interview because certainly we truncate it for the podcast. But she has a lot to say.
That is wonderful. And I know by the time this broadcast goes out, my wife and I will have gone into the movie theaters and seen this beautiful movie by Mr. Fred Rogers. And related to that, there is Tom Hanks, who is probably my favorite actor alive in this day and age. We found out he's related to Fred Rogers.
Who knew? But he captures the essence of Fred Rogers so well in the movie, and to find out that he's a distant cousin is really quite interesting.
I know we can't. It seems like we keep talking about that movie.
Yeah, right.
I have a feeling like during Academy Award season we're going to be talking about it as well too. I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised either because the whole production's very well done.
If there's some things,
but you were referring to us covering programs, and we know there's so many stories of the Army in action around the country, and we just encourage officers and those friends of the Army to key us into what those are. We'd love to share your stories with our public, with our readership.
I think it's important for our listeners to know that they can't just assume that we know all what's happening, and we want to know the little and the big.
Yes.
We want to know the significant and maybe what may seem as insignificant to somebody. It's important, and the diversity of what we do in our work in the United States is impressive to say the least. It's unique. It's different. We're living in a time now where we have this woke culture, we have this cancel culture, and political correctness. And the Salvation Army has stood fast against any kind of criticism and persecution. In our early days, William Booth was criticized for taking money from breweries, for example, right? That's been well documented, and do you remember his favorite phrase?
I paraphrase.
Yeah, you paraphrase.
Why does the devil have all the best tunes?
Well, that was one, and basically, he said I'll take tainted money because it taint enough.
Right.
He was being criticized for that sort of thing.
Yeah,
we've recently weathered another storm of which it seems to be a habit now that different groups want to rise up and protest against the Salvation Army for this and that, and we make our way through these moments of discontent, or I think it's a lot of misinformation. Also, the fact that I believe if we are people that are tolerant, that we should always have room to agree to disagree with people that may not express the same sort of feeling or understanding of how something should be appreciated. But I'm very proud of the work that goes on in this country day in and day out. And I'm also mindful of the fact that we in the United States are doing this work that allows us to support the worldwide work of the Salvation Army.
You think about the Army being international, but also being so inclusive of, regardless of race or class or religion, the service is open to all. But also you think about Osborne's song where he says, "In Christ there is no east or west, in him no north or south. It's just one fellowship of love." And really that's what the Army conveys through its ministries.
Before we get back to the conversation with Colonel Foley, I just want to take a moment to talk about Peer Magazine. Peer is a Salvation Army youth publication for 16 to 22-year-olds. By addressing topics related to faith, community, and culture, Peer ignites a conversation that deepens biblical perspective, faith, and holy living. Peer is a monthly magazine that comes directly to your mailbox for free almost every month. Just visit peermag.org to subscribe. Again, that's peermag.org.
Well, let's talk about a few other things here. This issue of the War Cry is already out. And Jeff, is there anything that you want to highlight our readers to paying attention to?
Well, there's an interesting quiz in there about the Army in the movies. The Army has
That's
had
what I was going to say.
Okay,
I'm
Michele.
sorry.
Jeff? Hold on a second. Michele.
I'm sorry.
Is there anything in this
It's the
issue?
only thing I did.
Okay, good.
There's a fun quiz in there.
Now, what is that quiz?
It is the movie and TV and song. It's Army in Hollywood. What'd I title it?
You called it the Army in Hollywood.
Yeah, Army in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the Grinch? How was the Grinch mentioned?
I can't. Okay, well, I'm gonna give away an answer then. But it's the opening scene. The people of Whoville, they're doing the band is actually the Salvation Army representatives. Like, so you're not gonna say that their uniforms are very similar to the Salvation Army.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And I know you have in here Secretariat. I know the answer to that one.
The what?
The Secretariat. See?
Yeah.
The horse movie.
Do you remember?
Seabiscuit?
Yes. Oh, that's right.
Oh, Seabiscuit.
Whatever. It was a horse. It's a horse movie. I don't bet on the ponies, so I don't know. But well, and of course, one of my favorites besides Elf. I love Elf. But our Salvation Army is not mentioned in Elf.
Nope.
But the Christmas story, the Salvation Army is all over that.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that's great.
Right. The point being that the Army is so iconic in American culture, and these are just little vignettes referencing that.
I'm sure we didn't capture all of them.
Many more. And actually, I think our readers are going to let us know of more.
I hope they would.
Yes.
And our listeners.
At
Salvation Army.
No.
No! S-A, warcry.org.
no.
You can't have an at and a .org.
I love where you're going with that.
Okay.
But no.
This is the millennials saying, okay, boomer,
Get with it.
I didn't say it.
were you insulting me?
I would never insult you.
Were
You're
you
my
thinking
boss.
that? No.
You're the coolest boss ever.
Really?
You and Jeff. I can't decide.
Oh, my goodness. Listen to that.
Coolest boss ever.
I mean, when I think cool.
I work on my cool. It's finally
what do you
coming
want,
to
Elizabeth?
fruition.
What is it you want?
I want nothing but your happiness.
Okay, so it's at no at.
No, well, the at sign. Like,
The at sign.
Yep. SA.
SA.
Warcry.
Warcry. No .org.
No.org. You can visit thewarcry.org,
Yeah.
but that's our website.
You kids are so cool.
What can we say?
I just think it's
Dinner jeans.
But thinking of the Christmas issue, of course, the general leads the issue off with a call to mission, calling for a rededication to the Army's mission. And that is kind of the singular refrain that we hear throughout Army leadership.
We were privileged to have the pedals here at National Headquarters a few weeks ago. I'll give you a little insight. He told me, he said, when we get your letter, we have a little chuckle. Because we send him like 6 months in advance a letter requesting his piece. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, brace yourself because we're about ready to send you one for Easter. And so he kind of laughed at that. So he enjoys doing that. But that's a tradition always to have a message from the head of the Salvation Army internationally with the general. The last thing I want to talk about is we finally pulled off a book under my administration. I'm so happy for that. You want to talk a little bit about our new book?
We're glad that we were able to get it out in time for the Advent season because Christmas Breakthrough by Commissioner Phil Needham is exactly that, devotionals for the Advent season. The good thing about this book, and it's quite thoughtful, and it will be a perennial in that it can be used each Advent season for in cores, in Bible studies, for personal reflection, and we hope to have that out soon as an ebook, and the audio version of that is in the works with the author himself being the narrator.
And that's, Commissioner Phil Needham is a fan favorite in the Salvation Army. He's a great author, great person, a good godly man, and he was really working hard on this book. And I know internally we were working hard to try to meet these deadlines, which oftentimes we don't have when we have to put a book together. We can just kind of be a little bit more. Yeah. So we were trying to make sure that this thing gets in the hands of officers and other folks. It's available at christianbooks.com.
It is, and it has been distributed to the Army units around the country through their divisions.
We'd like to hear what their thoughts on the book and what's going on. And also, I like the fact that this book actually will be something that will reprint down the road. I can see that.
Yes.
And he's shared with me, he has kind of got a companion idea. He hasn't written it yet, but a companion idea for Lent, the Lent season. So we're very excited about that. And we thank the Lord for Commissioner Needham and thank him for his good work. There was a lot of pushback that kind of went back and forth. We had transitions. We had employees coming and going, and we had a lot of other challenges that were kind of, the currents were kind of going against us, but you persevered, and we got a good
with
thing
our
there.
team. We were able to get it through, and we're very happy to seeing the light of day in time for the Christmas season. Yeah.
And you did mention briefly we do have a new thing coming out. There'll be soon the audio version of this,
right?
Which we're not going to do on every book, but this one kind of lends itself. And the Southern Territory has reached out to us to kind of enter into a partnership to allow us to do that as we go forward. And then as we're speaking, hopefully by the time this goes out or we get close to it, there'll be an ebook, and we're working with Amazon and Christian Books to be able to have this as a downloadable for Kindle, for Nook, and however else people read ebooks.
Right. We're working with the Southern Territory on that too. We actually have a conference call with them week after next to discuss the process for those ebooks being available through the South and through them on Amazon, etc.
So that is like going forward, that will just become a normal process for us as we talk about these different books.
Yes. We're taking that in-house, the formatting of the ebooks, which is, it's a process, and it requires diligence and care.
And we're currently working on the next book, which is going to be distributed to all officers throughout the United States and delegates at the NAOC. So
it should be good. Yeah, I think so.
Well, we're gonna slowly bring this land this podcast down. We appreciate you listening to our podcast, and you can download podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. We're about ready to turn the corner to celebrate the anniversary of Peer Magazine, and so we encourage you to read our wonderful youth magazine, Top Shelf magazine, peermag.org. And you can go and you can read it for free there too, Jeff, in case you don't ever see that magazine.
Correct. And boy, it's a year anniversary, and it's made some great impact and has great articles for Generation Z.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. We encourage you to get the book Christmas Breakthrough by Phil Needham. It's available at christianbooks.org. I hope all of our listeners are having a wonderful Christmas season, and that you'll be reminded again, the reason for the season is the good news that God has given to us through the birth of His Son. And we thank God for the means of salvation through Jesus Christ our Lord. So on behalf of the Salvation Army at National Headquarters, thank you for listening. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Tim Foley.
I'm Jeff McDonald.
I'm Michele Katsaris.
And I'm Elizabeth.
We hope that you have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everybody.
Subscribe to Fight for Good wherever you listen to podcasts.